human race. Preacher man say it's wonders and signs. We are living in the end of times. Where is the love we once used to know of it? Let's make a change before it's too late. Too much killing, too much blood spilling. Each and every morning, it's weeping and mourning. We've got to stop up the crimes, erase the violence, let our voice be heard. We can't sit in silence. The hope of tomorrow is in no use today. We've got to live in love. Crime and violence don't pay.
3, 2, 1. WEFM is SPG.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's edition of Cop Chat. Today is September 14th, 2023. Of course, Thursday. Every Thursday, we bring to you Cop Chat between 8 and 9 a.m., where the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force joins us to talk about something that is law, coming from the side of the law, and of course, very relative. Now, this morning, we're going to be talking about the medicinal cannabis industry, the implications for the use and control of illegal drugs, and the enforcement of the drug laws. My name is Crystal. I'm your host. And in studio this morning, we have Dr. Gerald Thompson. He's the Chief Executive Officer at the Medicinal Cannabis Authority. We also have Mr. Dwight Lewis, Sergeant of Police within the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force. And joining us in just a few will be Mr. Iraqi Huggins, also Sergeant of Police within the RSVGPF. Good morning, gentlemen.
A pleasant good morning to you, Crystal. It's always lovely to be here back at WEFM down at Old Fort Kittels.
Old Fort Lower Kittels.
Lower Kittels.
Pleasant good morning to everyone. Crystal, second time being here. And pleasant good morning to Dr. Gerald Thompson as well.
All right. So this morning is going to be quite an interesting conversation on medicinal cannabis and the law, the drug laws. Now, if you have a question or a comment, you can let us know via the WhatsApp at 4579994. Also, you can leave a comment on Facebook or YouTube on the live, and we'll address that. The number to call is 4579997. Now, to begin this morning's conversation, right? Implications for the use and control of illegal drugs and the enforcement of the drug laws. Perhaps we can start with the drug laws.
Good morning again. And to begin the session, what I will be dealing with are some legislations that we have regarding the use of drugs. So for starters, what we have is the Drugs Prevention of Misuse Act, Chapter 284 of the Revised Laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines of 2008. We also have the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Medicinal Cannabis Industry Act of 2018. This deals with the decriminalization of medicinal cannabis. And from a prosecution standpoint, what we also have is the Criminal Code, Chapter 171 of the Revised Laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines 2009.
Okay, so which of those are you able to expand a little bit on within this morning's sessions?
I will try to deal with probably the Medicinal Cannabis Industry Act of 2018 and some aspects of the Drugs Prevention of Misuse Act.
Okay, so let's deal with the medicinal cannabis first.
So for starters, persons would have some misconception with the term medicinal cannabis. And what the Act specifically states that for such use, you have to have authorization for the prescription of medicinal cannabis from an authorized medical doctor. You also have to have submission of medical certificate by the authorized medical doctor. You would be issued with an ID, an identification card for such use. And there are certain aspects that would be present on the identification card for you to show that you are indeed prescribed to use medicinal cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, there's a certain amount of cannabis that one should have for the safe use of medicinal cannabis. And that amount is 56 grams, which there are some tolerance for probably 57 or 58. And I think Dr. Gerald Thompson will expound more on the tolerable amount that a person is required to have on them.
Mm-hmm.
There are also certain criteria that persons who are growing medicinal cannabis to have. Um, they have to have a license, and I have with me some excerpts from the Act regarding cultivation, regarding the identification, dispensing, and the like of medicinal cannabis. So at times when we go around and we see persons with a spliff, and you ask them, why are you with marijuana? And most persons will tell you that I have a prescription to use medicinal cannabis. And some of us just take it at face value, and we just allow them to go along their merry way and smoking the cannabis. However, there are also certain guidelines where persons are not allowed to be smoking in public places. I mean, it is prohibited for persons to be smoking in public places, especially marijuana. And those are supposed to be done. Well, that is supposed to be done in private. That is at your own home, probably if you have a vehicle and the like. So in public places, it is prohibited for persons to be smoking cannabis, and even for medicinal purposes, right? So those are some important highlights from the app. I just want to also touch on the inspectors of the persons who are designated to be inspectors to check the persons who plant, who dries, who dispenses, persons who manufacture certain products made from cannabis. These persons are not below the rank of a corporal of police, and there's an exception where persons may be designated under the act to act as inspectors. So you have inspectors, not necessarily police officers, but you may have civilians acting as inspectors. But mind you, what the powers of police in regarding inspecting premises, executing warrants and the like, those are specifically tailored for police. However, there may be instances where such warrants may, under this act, be executed by civilians who are designated to be inspectors.
Okay. Now, a quick question on so you're allowed to have up to 56 grams once you have an ID. Is there provision for if when you are approached by an officer and you don't have that ID on you, are you given like 24, 48 hours to present that to the officers or to the police?
it should be easy because you would be there's a record of you at the prescribed medical doctor's office. So if you don't have the ID, a simple telephone call will suffice where you can contact the medical practitioner for them to verify that you are indeed their patient and that you are indeed a holder of a valid medicinal cannabis ID identification card. So there are measures where that can be done.
Who would make the call, the police or the
I,
holder?
I would expect that the police would give the persons ample time to contact the medical practitioner because the medical practitioner number should be in that person's cellular phone or in their on their notes.
Okay.
So it should be readily available to that person.
Okay. All right. Now, a next question. Maybe I can hop over to Doc. You'll be able to answer this one coming from the MCA, Medicinal Cannabis Authority. Is there a list of registered doctors who have the authority to dispense prescriptions, or it's any medical doctor whatsoever?
Okay, thank you very much there, Crystal. And let me just go back a little bit. You know, laws often start with some international treaties. And there are these three big treaties. One passed in 1961, pushed by the United States, called the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs. And then they realized there was some other type of drug called psychotropic drugs. And so another treaty was passed in 1971, not 1961, 1971. And then they realized that in order to really combat trafficking, they developed a treaty on trafficking of narcotic drugs in 1988 that did several things. It criminalized anybody who traded in cannabis, but guess what? It also criminalized personal possession. Personal possession. So if you had it on your possession and you were going to use it, it criminalized personal possession. It was then observed that a lot of young males who may have had bad advice were being picked up and they were getting criminal records, police records, to show that they had used a spliff, one spliff, two spliff. They were found with small amounts of cannabis. And when I'm talking about personal possession, I'm talking about small amounts of cannabis, not 200 pounds, 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds. I'm talking about very small amount. And then guess what? In 1995, something remarkable happened. I was practicing as an infectious disease specialist in New York. I had AIDS patients who I knew were receiving cannabis. They were telling me they needed cannabis to keep their weight up. I dismissed a lot of this. And in 1995, through Israeli research, they discovered that inside our body, there was a system yet undiscovered. You know, you have your pulmonary system, you breathe, you have your nervous system, you have your cardiac system with your heart, you have your gastrointestinal system. Well, there was a system that they labeled as the endocannabinoid system that control your mood, that control your sleep, control your appetite, control your pain levels, and control several other functions of your body that we didn't know. We thought that when you see food, you eat food. You know, when you want sleep, you sleep. But there are real other things that this endocannabinoid system controlled. And that our body releases substances that regulates our sleep, our mood, our this and so. That's seriously. And they found that in the cannabis, there were similar compounds that could affect the mood, sleep, appetite, pain levels of the body. It was a remarkable thing. And what that did, by 2000, certain countries and states like California, people started to say, I want a legal right to use cannabis. It's my human right. It's my form of justice that I can't find another medication to use that works. The cannabis works better. And so you then started seeing countries and states really allowing it to be used. And by 2010, Canada, people sued the government of Canada and said, I should be able to have 3-4 plants in my windowsill so that I could use myself. But soon it was realized that a lot of people couldn't have 3 plants in a windowsill and still needed it. And Canada was one of the first to really go some distance. And other states like Uruguay and so followed. There's been a trend such that there's almost half the world that now recognizes medicinal cannabis. 1 or 2 recognizes recreational but medicinal. Now, the question you've asked, let me go back to that. And let me say that these treaties, when they were first developed, led to the Drug Prevention and Misuse Act, with the knowledge we had in 1988. It led to the Drug Trafficking Offense Act and the Proceeds of Crime Act and the insertion in the Criminal Code. That was, I'm talking about 30 plus years ago. Since that time, our Drug Prevention and Misuse Act has had to be amended. It was amended in 2008, 2009, but it was also amended in 2019. And it totally readjusted things in terms of how we look at it. So when you go back and see what the laws were like in 1988, things have changed substantially in relation to this. Now, Crystal, just remind me, the question you were asking me was in relation to, the MCA has a website. And on this website, we list all the doctors who have been approved and authorized to prescribe. And for a doctor to be able to approve and authorize and write a prescription, they must go through a 1-day training course. And we deliver the course for them. Sometimes we get experts in, but now we have the expertise, we deliver the course. And we orient them on how to write prescriptions properly. Now, doctors know how to write prescription, but we orient them how to write medicinal cannabis properly, and the quantities and who to do it for and so. And I'm taking a long time. Let me say there are 20 conditions that you can receive medicinal cannabis for in St. Vincent. Some other places they have 25, 30, but we have 20. Mm-hmm. And I want you to understand that cannabis can be used for helping people to stop them from having nausea and vomiting. You go in a boat ride down to Beckway, it could help you with that. It can help you with pain, chronic pain, where other medication, it can help if you heard about it, or multiple sclerosis, and help with inflammation. But I want to introduce you to 3 conditions. Appetite boosting. Somebody who doesn't have an appetite is losing, and they need to boost the appetite. Cannabis can be used to boost the appetite as an appetite stimulant. But guess what? It could also help with mood disorder, anxiety disorder. You know, some people, before they go on stage, they take a shot of rum. Well, cannabis can be used to help with anxiety and depression. It could also be used for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Someone who has been raped, someone who has had a problem. You remember this young lady, Sasha Richardson, who's the athlete. Her one of her mother had died, and she took some cannabis to help control a bit of her depression and anxiety and stress and so forth.
Shakara Richardson, yeah.
What did I say, Sasha? Sorry,
it's correct now.
Yeah, but and then sleep disorders. Imagine sleep disorders. So I wanted just to give a whole spectrum of it. And so the doctors who authorize, we have close to about 30 doctors in St. Vincent who are authorized, and they basically are able to write the prescription. They know how to write the prescription. They know what to write the prescription for, and we've seen some really good results and compliance from the doctors in this regard.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and this information is on the website, but you did not give us the website.
Oh, yes. Yeah, mca.vc. 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 MCA.VC.
Okay.
But I think that generally the information is usually around as regards which doctors, there are a number of senior doctors, number of junior doctors, and so who can prescribe, and it's fairly well known.
Okay. Now, a question coming in from the WhatsApp. Good morning. Question for the panel. Do you have to get a prescription for the use of medicinal cannabis cream?
Okay. Now, what I should be able to tell you is what is really medicinal cannabis. They found that in cannabis, there are a number of different compounds. Everyone has heard of THC. This is the one that can get you high, but it has medicinal properties too. And then there's one called CBD. It has medicinal properties, but it doesn't get you high. And then there's CBG, there's CBN, CBC, a host of other different products. And then there are the terpenes. And these terpenes are the thing that give the cannabis its smell and its odor. Sometimes they give it a pine smell, or it can give you a woody smell, or a lemon smell. There are different type of these terpenes. And together, it allows them to work. Now, why I'm saying that is that products that are made from CBD, we often have not considered them to be so innocuous, you know what I mean, that they would get you high or so. In many countries of the world, even the United States, which has THC as being illegal, CBD is legal. And they can use the CBD to make a cream. Some people prefer a combination of the CBD and the THC. Anytime THC is present or needed, then a prescription must be written. However, if it's CBD for creams and for ointments and sometimes even for droppers, we have relaxed the regulations for CBD. Let me put it here in St. Vincent, as is the case in many places. And you are able to pick up the CBD over the counter. You may still need a prescription for it. The doctor may still write a prescription for it, but there are places where you can get it over the counter. Let me put it that way. But anytime THC, the stuff that gets you a little high, is required, and the doctor says you require that to make sure things work. And there's some of these conditions that work best when you have THC in it. Some conditions, the CBD is the better stuff. In other conditions, a combination of the THC and the CBD is best. But there are those conditions in which the THC is the thing to go with. The appetite, it stimulates your appetite, you need THC. Nausea and vomit, THC. Sleep disorders, mainly THC. So pain, killing pain, usually requires a combination of the CBD and the THC because they work together in what we call a synergy effect. We call the entourage effect to give you better results than if one of them was being used alone.
Okay. Another quick question. I have noticed that there are some products that are on pharmacy shelves.
Yes.
That
all CBD related product. Just simply, there'll be no THC at all on a shelf that you buy. And some of these would be creams, CBD creams and so forth and things like that.
So I can just go and purchase without having to go to a doctor to get a certificate or prescription or
put it this way.
An ID?
The doctor will best know if you require something different. I don't suggest you to go and treat yourself. You understand? I don't suggest that you're Dr. Crystal, but I don't believe that you should go and play doctor. We try to recommend to people, don't play doctor and do your own thing. Get some medical advice on this to see if you really do need a cream with some THC in it, or you do need a product with THC in it, because that will work better and you will get better results than you just try. Because it's available, let me try that. Because remember, cream is something put on the skin. I don't want anybody to think that cream you could go and put it in your food or eat
Not that
it
kind of cream.
or anyway or so or put the cream in your tea. I make it absolutely sure of that. You know, you make putting the cream in your coffee and so forth for things like that. I've been very careful about those kind of statements using the word cream.
Okay, I only asked because I wanted to ascertain whether or not you needed to have an ID to be able to purchase the ones that are on the shelves.
No,
So
not
that's no.
necessary. No, not
Okay.
necessarily.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Now, I there's something that is a little confusing. The 56 grams that's across the board, or that's specific to medicinal cannabis?
Yes. I
That's
wonder. I wonder if I could come in
No,
here.
you said yes, but is it yes to across the board or yes to medicinal cannabis?
that's specifically yes for medicinal cannabis. As the doctor would have highlighted before, um, there were times when persons were arrested for like a one spliff, small amount, and it became a strain on the court system per se, and you have youngsters getting criminal records just for a spliff. So there were leeway given for persons. I mean, for one spliff, is it is it is it is it criminally right to arrest a teenager for one spliff for them to have a criminal record that will hamper them in their chances of getting employment? I mean, so you look at that. So for one spliff, which may add up to about 56 or even 60 grams, is it
Yeah.
Pretty
beneficial?
small.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
it depends because you have some spliff.
no, one spliff. Let me just make the
Yeah.
correction there. One spliff would be like 1 gram,
1 gram,
2 grams.
2
You
grams.
understand? 56 grams
Yeah, sure, Steve.
is roughly, I would say, about this amount. Obviously, I don't have the packet with me. I probably should have been able to bring a 56-gram packet and a 1 pound packet so that you'll be able to see. But we would have had to arrange certain issues of collaboration with the police, with transportation and so forth to have brought it here.
Very serious.
And so rather than doing that, let me just say this amount in a packet roughly is about 56 grams. You know, that might seem a lot, but what we cater for is for the individual who needs it. And this 56 grams is what we call, this size is the raw flour, dried flour product. Remember, we also talk about 56 grams in oil, or 56 grams in cream, or 56 grams in other type of products. You can have a vape pen, just like this, that has a cartridge of oil in it. And when you press a button, it heats up the oil and you're able to inhale it.
Okay.
And you're getting that particular vapor down into your lungs. It's considered to be the same thing as smoking, but by using a vape pen, you're not getting some of the smells circulating in this room. So I could have a vape pen in my pocket and use it, and you don't know or detect or smell, or it doesn't disturb you using it. Or I could have a dropper, right? Like a baby dropper, like a baby who getting medication, and a dropper, I can put it under my tongue and put 2 drops, 3 drops under my tongue, keep it there for a while. The amount of blood vessels under your tongue is very rich, so that it's absorbed there under your tongue and so forth. So there are a lot of elderly persons with, I will tell you something. We now have half the persons who've received prescription are female. And the age group of persons receiving prescription, usually between 25 or 30 to 50. That's where the height of it. But we're seeing elderly. Matter of fact, Sanjay Gupta had a program 3 weeks ago on CNN showing the benefits of medicinal cannabis for the elderly, right? But doctors are always very cautious in what they prescribe, how they prescribe, and how they do it, and educating the patient so that there's no abuse or that there's no misuse of the medications and so in that regard.
Okay. Now, you mentioned age, maybe one of the officers. Let me just say good morning to Mr. Iraqi Huggins, Sergeant of Police. He's joining us within the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force. Good morning. Oh, there. Hold on. That's my good morning again.
Yes.
Let's do it again.
Good morning, Crystal. Good morning, Dr. Thompson, Sergeant Lewis. I had a little mishap this morning, so I was late, but I'm here. Nevertheless,
Nevertheless.
I was following the program, so
Okay, wonderful. Now, as you mentioned age, are there age restrictions that would limit who can get a license or an ID? Not license, sorry, prescription or ID.
Yes, if I could say that, there are maybe as a so that the the age is 18 years old.
18.
Yes. For that matter, THC, we don't typically like the use of THC below the age of 18. The brain is developing, and THC can trip some people off. Anybody who's had a family history of, let's say, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, mental illness, and they are taking some very high grade product, it can trip them off. And the mental home and so forth has had some occupants there, some young occupants who have tried this very early in life. You know what I mean? But somebody who is under the age of 18 can still use. It's just it has to be given to someone else, somebody else, a parent or so, who will receive it on their part. In fact, a strange thing, during the time of COVID, there was a patient who was having a very high fever, and they couldn't give the patient, this child, the usual medication. And they wanted to know, can they use CBD to give to this patient? And initially, we said, oh, no, we don't think so. But the research has shown that CBD is good in extreme situations at bringing down temperature, can be used for kids. So it can be used for kids and so. Now, where it's really needed for kids is in epilepsy, seizures. There's some seizures in which the kids, sometimes other standard medication just don't work. And guess what? Cannabis, CBD works. Now, this isn't going to be, they'll be smoking cannabis. This is where they be using the droppers under their tongue, giving some special dosing. And we've seen remarkable results. You used to Sanjay Gupta, Charlotte's Web, a lot of publicity about these kids who are having seizures every 15 minutes, every half an hour. The cannabis was able to control their seizures, their epilepsy, and they were now able to have normal life. It was wonderful seeing Charlotte, a young lady who did featured, now a teenager, going to school because CBD, cannabis, has been able to control her seizures. It's a wonderful thing that otherwise would have been dubbed as being totally illegal, and she could not be able to use it and restore her life.
Okay. I have a question for the officers. How does the medicinal cannabis industry make regulating and controlling the misuse and abuse of drugs a challenge? Or does it make it challenging?
if I may say, the dynamics has changed since the Medicinal Cannabis Authority started. Sometimes it can be a challenge, and the challenge is that a lot of people are not sensitized enough about the topic and about what the new act says. For example, the 56 grams. It's an offense to have over 56 grams of cannabis on it. You can be arrested, charged, and take to court. As I've been listening to the program, but the police, we have a lot of tolerance, very, we exercise a lot of tolerance. A lot, as I say. You can look at the records shows that in the court system, back then, marijuana offenses used to be high, but now it's very low. But so my thing is that we need to sensitize the public more about the medicinal part of it, and also the when it comes to law enforcement, we need to sensitize them more on it. Smoking in public, there's supposed to be designated areas for smoking. And we are seeing people, young, old, lighting up the place, smoking anywhere.
Supposed to be. Are those areas set? Who sets those areas?
Well, I think which one of the minister supposed to be.
Yes, there are. We have what's considered to be consumption lounges, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that. Are you?
Well, the
The-
term sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Consumption lounges.
Consumption lounges. This is a term that was developed in France for other type of drugs. You understand? Where the use of drugs could be supervised by people who understood drugs so that there wouldn't be that much abuse. It's now being used in a number of parts of the world. And here in St. Vincent, there are consumption lounges where the ventilation, where the use, where the monitoring and so forth can be done. And so the number of places, hotels, area where it can be used. Now, what Mr. Huggins point out is very rare, that you are able to use cannabis in your home. That is the primary area of designation. Also, the treaties I was telling you about allow for the use for medicinal and for research if you have laws to do so. We have the laws, but the treaties don't allow for spiritual sacrament use. However, in the revised version of the Drug Prevention and Misuse Act, it does allow for the Rastafari and other Hindu to use it in their tabernacles, in their synagogues, in their area of worship. But we have not been able to put that in law. In other words, what the tolerance that Iraq is talking about isn't part of the legislation. You can't legislate for tolerance. We have such a good working relationship with the police. We, as indicated, when we need to go and check out something that looks funny, we contact the police. When we need transportation in relation to exports and so forth, and has to be transported properly so that nobody stops the transportation on the way and drops off something or puts us out or takes it away. You know what I mean? The police is there for protection and for guidance and so forth. A number of ways I could go through in detail what the police is used for. But I want to declare that this process of tolerance has been in place. It's working well to some degree. It's where we get the upper limits of possession. You understand? In other words, when somebody starts having, like if somebody had 57 grams or 58 grams, you know,
6.6.
we expect there to be tolerance. Somebody had 80 grams, we expect there to be some tolerance. It's when somebody has 4 pounds, 3 pounds, 4 pounds. And I must tell you that in Singapore, 4 months ago, a man was executed for being involved in the trafficking of 2 pounds of cannabis. Executed, lost his life.
Yeah.
Now, dying can happen in St. Vincent. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You don't need tolerance for that. I mean, you know, but I do want to say, I think that when it comes to persons who are trafficking in larger amounts, the police have been on the ball. And this larger amount, especially when it's been done illegally and so forth, for the illegal export and so, the police really have been on top of the ball and have dealt with it, you know?
Okay. Now, you said when you're moving product from one place to the next, the police would have to get involved.
We do that specifically in relation to export. When it's movement, the inspectors at the MCA, where we talk about, we deal with that, or we be taking police away from very crucial business. So the inspectors at the MCA who have been authorized to deal with those things are able to deal with that. They've been trained, they know all about it, and we keep our electronic records, surveillance, and all that kind of stuff. There's no question in relation to that. But yeah,
If I can step in, the
Yeah.
forced export of 100 pounds to Germany,
yes,
I was part and parcel of that.
Mhm.
I headed the operation in at the most senior police on the operation
Okay.
to take the
yes.
drug from at the hall to the airport, and it was done smoothly without any hiccups.
Mhm. It's almost like transporting money. Somebody just called, but I didn't want to break what you were
It was
saying to
kind of
answer.
something new for the police because
Yeah.
we always enforce the laws when it comes to marijuana.
Right.
Now we are
Like, look at me
exporting
transporting, exporting. But what I wanted to find out was if there were other instances. Okay, no, let's take the call. I want to put on your headphones. Hello, good morning. The background noise, please. Can you turn that
Okay, just
down or
now.
off? No,
Yes, Mr. Thompson, this lady and other panelists, I am really knowing him. Now,
Sergeant.
I
Yes.
hear banded about say, oh, Vincent to legalize marijuana and one man getting hold for marijuana and man still getting hold for marijuana. But like enough education ain't going around and tell the people, Vincent not a law on to himself. To say, well, you could pass that they could do this and do that with them with drugs or any kind of crime. I wonder why people don't really why they don't really elaborate on this kind of thing, because if you do certain things like you tell a man to legalize marijuana in certain ways, international people coming at you, black market coming at you, sanction coming at you, and nobody, people still pushing it, especially the opposition in this country, pushing the narrative that oh, legalize this, why not do this, why not do that, and it's already talking about it against the international laws, and that is something that really kind of frightening, that people pushing this kind of head and confusing and tying up people. We can't tie me up, but sometimes people that seem to have a little understanding thing is tying them up, and everybody get confused about this thing, and enough education and preaching on this that you can't do what you want. Not because you're conscious yourself, but just can't do what you want. You self is a country and you have a prime minister. You just can't do what you want. You got to respect the laws, the wall, and all this kind of thing. So have a good day, man.
All right. Thank you so much. Another question coming in here. As you're speaking about tolerance, when there are shows, when we have entertainment, particularly where Jamaican artists, non-smokers are bombarded with having to inhale. Sometimes patrons would be, you know, smoking at these events. Can that be controlled somehow?
well, we normally set up such areas when patrons are entering shows. We would seize cannabis that is going in to the show because we know that's a problem. Because I might come to party with my friend and there's smoke all over the place into the park.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
But sometimes we can't get all.
Crystal, I think this is a very in order, whether it's for a medical condition or I just want to feel better or whatever the case might be, I want to feel high. But the person next to me may not want to have that experience, and it might disturb them. And so the whole idea about smoking in public or any sort of public event is one that is very good. Truthfully, the law does allow for the Minister of National Security to designate a show as being a cannabis-free show. It hasn't been done yet.
Oh yeah.
That hasn't been done yet, although there may be events that there is a time of the year is called World Cannabis Day.
420.
420.
420.
420. Yes,
Gone
420.
already.
420. In which a couple of events take place, and That's where some element of greater personal possession of a small amount for personal use, whether for medicinal or for it's in my home and it's not medicinal or whatever the case might be, or it's in my synagogue and so forth. There's a difference between that and possession of larger amounts for trade
We say
and
possession with
trafficking
intent
and
to
for sale.
supply.
Yeah?
Possession with intent to supply.
With intent to
Possession
supply.
with intent to supply.
To supply, yes.
Yes.
That's the police, I
Anything
think.
over 56 grams.
Yes.
That's the law.
Right. But we didn't mention anything about recreational. That's why I asked the question again about the 56 grams,
yeah.
because the focus has been on medicinal. But that was pulled from the Drug Prevention and Misuse Act and not the medicinal cannabis
Here the challenge.
law.
Is Crystal, you've hit the nail on the head again. There are only 2 countries in the world that have gone to legalize cannabis for recreational purposes. There are a number of recreational and even medicinal is illegal at this point in time. But some states, because they believe in states' rights, now Canada and Uruguay are the only states have done so. Certain other countries like South Africa, Malta, and a couple of others, they've introduced a concept for what's called cannabis clubs. Cannabis for they allow that, but you have to be a member of the club and pay your dues and so forth like that. You know, there are about 6 countries like that. But the other 80 countries that have legalized for medicinal purposes have followed the treaty and the laws of their country and are using it only for medicinal purposes. So here in St. Vincent, if we decide, let's kick the door down and let's legalize for medicinal purposes, we will join Canada and Europe, but
For recreational purpose.
for recreation. But guess what? It's the same thing if we say, let's catch 10 whales. We're allowed only a certain amount of whales. Or let's dump chemicals into the sea. There are treaties and laws that prevent international law to prevent this. And if you go against that, you're going to have sanctions. If we start to hunt 15 whales, you would see Greenpeace and a whole set of people don't go to St. Vincent. You see American, Virgin Atlantic flights have to stop. So, you could take a chance on certain things. But I said because of the way we've shaped our laws, right, and a certain element of tolerance, and let me add that a person who is what we call a visiting qualified patient, who comes from a country like Canada that is legalized and has an ID card, they can come and they can purchase the cannabis. And if they could find a nice consumption lounge, they could use it there too.
Officers, how do you verify whether or not
You recall?
and we're actually over time.
Yes.
But
Okay.
quickly,
Let's-
whether a foreigner has a legitimate ID?
Well, we'll do our checks and balances.
Mhm.
We'll contact the MCA.
Yeah.
And they will go further to the country. If it's not, we can check that out.
We
MC can do it.
Crystal, we have a sophisticated database. We also supply them, as tell you, with a list of all the farmers who are licensed, all the names, and so they know. Yes,
So, could that person travel to SVG, do your checks and balances?
That's the reason why they buy it here. They can't
Yes,
travel
they can't
with
travel
product.
they can't
Oh.
travel.
The federal restrictions,
Yes.
it's illegal federally. So they can't get on a plane with cannabis. Remember Diana Ross got caught with cannabis? You can't travel with cannabis.
Our laws says you can't smoke it in designated areas. of the
Yes,
country.
correct.
You cannot.
Yeah.
Okay.
You cannot.
Against the law.
Yeah.
All right. There's a bit more to this that has to be touched on. But we're out of time.
Oh, we out of time. We can go for
We
5
are-
minutes. Wait a minute.
we can have
I
a
thought-
part 2. We can have a part 2.
Yes.
All right. And
But I want to just, Crystal, sorry about this. Just take the call.
Yeah, good morning. I have 2 quick questions. One, can you transport cannabis domestically through airports in Jamaica and the Grenadines. And two, I'm not sure that the idea of what exactly is recreational marijuana is clear. I mean, I think there needs to be very much more clarity in terms of what exactly is recreational cannabis. So answer those two questions to me, please.
When you, as
Okay.
Dr.
Yeah, go
Thompson
ahead.
alluded with earlier on, that you
Mhm.
cannot get on a plane with cannabis.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
You
So
know,
that's a
and,
no-no.
and in transportation, let me just say, just to add to that, because St. Vincent and the Grenadines is one state, if you travel from St. Vincent to Bequia, right, Iraqi, and you go by boat and you have a medical ID card, yes, you could use that. Once you have your ID card, that's fine. But if you want to travel to Barbados, Grenada, the United States, please don't take the cannabis on the plane. Yes, Ann?
Because we have had quite a bit of small seizures at the airport where people wanted to travel with them because
They
so,
thought.
yeah.
Mm.
That's why I said earlier on sensitization is very important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. And I mentioned to you about taking cannabis for appetite stimulation. I'm telling you, in 1990, when I practiced and I was treating AIDS patients, it was illegal. But I must tell you, I knew they were taking cannabis. I couldn't, the first patient who came, I wrote a letter authorizing them to use. Then I found out from my lawyer that boy, be very careful. You might lose your license if you do that. But I knew they were all taking it for that purpose. And I would see them come into my office. Initially, they were thin as a stick, and now they were putting back. And for mood disorders, depression, and anxiety, anxiety in particular was considered to be recreational. You know, some people who take cannabis is because they get anxious, they get, stressed out and so forth. That's why I mentioned about Shakira Richards and so forth.
Shakari.
And then for sleep disorder, imagine for somebody who just cannot sleep, they're waking up 2, 3, 4 in the morning, can't go back to sleep, and so forth. And the cannabis is able to help them to go back to sleep. So these conditions in the past was considered recreation, now considered medical. But I'm only mentioning that St. Vincent has not legalized for recreational purposes. And we cannot do so from an international point of view. What I call if we did it, we'd be crazy to be doing that. You know what I mean? It'd be nice, and some people would applaud us, but we would lose a lot of business otherwise, and so forth.
All right.
And I want to end by saying I want to again commend the police. And the program we had earlier this week, I want to commend the chief magistrate, Rashan Brown, for her own recent verdict on some of the charges based on the valuation of cannabis. That's a discussion I know we'll have to have again with the police. And very soon we're supposed to be having a meeting with the top brass of the police, with the MCA. And I'm sure we'll be discussing a lot of these issues. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you very much for having me on this program.
All right. All right, no problem. Officers?
All right. Thank you very much, Crystal. I was late earlier, but at least if you have a part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We need to.
Yeah.
There's so much more to discuss.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Crystal, for Dr. Slater for being here. For myself, this is my second.
People always call me Dr. Slater. People always call Dr. Slater. But Iraqi would know me as Dr. Thompson because I'm a chateau man. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You know what I mean? He could make that mistake. You know what I mean?
For part 2, definitely I like to be here because there are some things that we didn't touch on, such as cultivation and the like. So
And having a plant in your
having
home.
a plant in your yard, having 5 or 6.
Yeah.
What is the allowable amount?
Yeah.
Okay. Next step will be.
Yes.
Next time, maybe next week. We'll see. It has to be done. All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and all the very best today. And there you have it for today, Cop Chat. Thank you so much for joining us.